Hello, I am your how-to hamster. We're going to be getting 3dcoat organized today. See, 3dcoat's a big series and collection of tools, and it can get overwhelming at times. But if you know where to go, we can get everything organized so there's not so much stuff to overwhelm everybody with. We're just going to head on in. We're going to go to the poly modeling room. And we're going to get that loaded. And what we're going to do, we're going to see the problem here. Lots and lots of tools. It can be a bit overwhelming. But if we go to Customize UI, you go ahead and click on that. We're going to see all kinds of icons. It says editing mode, and what you got to do is hit right click and you can hit hide. So we're going to hide some of the tools that, well, they're not that they're not useful, but we don't need them right now for this little course I'm teaching. So we're going to get those hidden. You can always go back into Customize UI and unhide anything you might need. Spoiler alert, you can also rearrange them and nest them too. But we'll get into that and I'll show you that a little bit later. So as I said, a lot of what we're going to be doing now, we're not doing any curve tools. We're going to be doing a lot with extrusions, bevels, line selections, all that. Just hiding a few more. Like I said, 3dcoat's a really nice all-in-one tool, but right now we're just going to be working with the poly modeling for now. We'll get to other fun stuff later. It even has a whole texturing thing. We're going to hide the hybrid workflow. It's nice, but we're not going to touch that here, at least not just yet. Maybe a couple under entire mesh that need to be hidden really quick. So just hang on. Like I said, I kind of pre-recorded the video and I'm just recording the audio separate, so just bear with me if my mouth is moving a little faster than the video itself. Alright, we're just going to go up to a cube here in this footage here. We're going to try to make a little Star Trek style phaser, at least a block out for one. First thing we're going to need is just to get the size and proportions correct. We're going to actually work with the select tool. One thing that's important is you have to actually press the 5 key on the number pad to go into ortho. If you look in the lower right corner of the window, it'll say ortho. Now if you go in by default, it's going to say perspective. It looks cool, but your measuring won't work out right. We're selecting some faces, but one thing you also have to be careful of, we're going to illustrate that in just a minute, the ignore back faces. If you don't check that, it's going to select all the way through your model. So you have something to be wary of. If we select anything, we can't really extrude quite right. We're going to do a little select move and get this resized to where it's somewhat squarish looking. A little bit of the magic of editing here, but you know, there is that. We're just going to do a quick select on 4 faces. Yep, and making sure we're not selected all the way through. Then the next tool we're going to go to is the Smart Extrude tool. This one's kind of cool. You have to set it up to go along normal in our case. You drag up, you can pull, and then you actually move, I do believe actually from left to right, you actually can resize it. So you can kind of, it's a little bit of extrude and a resize tool in one. We're just kind of blocking out our little phaser gun here. Commit extrusion when you're done extruding, otherwise it'll get a little bit messy. And kind of getting that little core diamond shape a little bit. You can also do an intrusion instead of an inset if you don't want to leave that. Smart Extrude also doubles as an inset tool. So you have that working for you. And just kind of showing off kind of what we have. It's a little bit squarish, so we'll probably need to do some resizing really quick. Just give me a second while I find the transform tool. There we go. Had to do a little bit due to the magic of editing here. And we're going to squish that down on a little bit to the side to get it not quite as blockish, maybe just a slight rectangular shape. And did a little bit of a subdivide, not too big, but you know, getting a little bit so we have a little more geometry to work with. We're going to do what we call a soft select. This is one unique thing that 3dcoat has that I haven't been able to replicate in Blender. It's where you can do essentially proportional editing on any shape. So it allows you to do that. I'm just going to do that 10 times to get that scaled up. And just using the scale tools instead of a sharp transition, we get a nice smooth transition on that curve. We're going to do a little bit more in just a moment. And just going to do a small selection in the back here. A little bit more to feather that a bit, as the 10x is for. And we push that down just a little bit using this resize handle. Kind of showing off our work a little bit. Here, just working with the sizes a bit. And just going to select, we're going to select a little patch on the top of it. A lot of times if you hit the plus key, it'll kind of select and balloon outward. It also works with the minus key to go back in. I'm doing a little bit of manually selecting. I'm going to show you the multi-extrude tool under Smart Extrude. You go back to Smart Extrude. What it's going to do is you hit that and you can actually go into multi-mode. We're in the simple mode and selected free by default. We're going to go into normal. And what it does is you can change this by your curve. And you hit that, and you can change the points in the curve as far as how it flares outward if you select one point and move it. And you can move it inward a little bit, essentially making a pyramid on top of our phaser. Kind of flares outward a bit. You hit OK on that to finish the curve, and then you hit commit extrusion, and there you go. And it still prompts you to keep going, but we're not really here to make an Egyptian phaser, so I'm going to undo that momentarily. Tried to go ahead and delete it. I just figured in the end it was easier to hit undo. Just Control Z on the keyboard, still works as always. There's our selection, so we just deselect, Control D to deselect, so we just have the mesh selected. And what we're going to do now is we're going to actually select. You can actually hit one line by pressing the L key. It stops at an edge typically. You got your settings right there. You hit L again to select the second line. We're going to make some bevels. I tend to prefer to use the right-click menu on that, so we're going to go up to that momentarily. And you right-click and hit Bevel, and you got your settings there. You can control the size and the number of segments. Now, there's a reason that I only did half of the phaser. We're going to use symmetry for the other half. We'll show that in just a minute. What you do is you hit symmetry and you turn it on. We had to find the right axis. I'd forgotten to actually figure out where exactly. But in this case, it's the Z axis, or Z if you're from the UK. And what we do, and we usually like to have this on all the time in Sculpt, but it tends to be confusing in Poly. We just applied that symmetry to that layer. Now we turn symmetry off, and we have that applied to just the poly group we were working with. And I'll show you more about other poly groups in a later video. I will admit I did completely forget about the shift select trick where you can hold down shift and double click on a line and it'll just start tracing it. Would have made this a whole lot easier. But I did a little bit of editing to kind of spare you the tedium. And then we're going to bevel that. And that was a nice pretty bevel. Of course it kind of helps that 3dcoat shades it for me, but oh well. So we have our finished phaser. Well, about as finished as we're going to get. Looking relatively pretty at least. And we're going to smooth it. And it, of course, adds more polys. This is just mostly for demonstration purposes, rather. And we're going to save that. little bonus material here. We're going to go back to, this is a little bit later, just illustrating how we can actually rearrange where we want our items to clean up our clutter in the menu. So this kind of demonstrates that. Also, you know, if you have it lined up right, you can also nest one over the other, and you can also drag it back out using those 3 buttons right there, those 3 periods essentially, and that helps you keep the panels organized so you're not completely struggling and scrolling up and down all the brushes. We're going to hit stop editing on that. It's going to drop back into a cube. I will admit, this one I'm a little less inclined to use the space menu, maybe in future. Also hit tab and you can get rid of the side menu. The only thing that comes back to bite you is you hit bevel, and what can happen is you don't have your settings for bevel. You got to hit tab to go back into that. So I hit tab here, and there's your controls for the bevel, controlling the size and the number of segments. You have to be very careful not to overshoot it. Otherwise, it'll get ugly and 3dcoat will panic. Just hit OK on that. That's just also illustrating you have a quick select at the top of the space menu for items that you use frequently. Again, that's also all drag and drop. Thank you everybody for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and have a good day.